That seems like that's the way things work. Um, well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. And I would love to talk first and foremost about something that melds well into your book and to where we're at kind of in a conscious way as people. 4 years ago, COVID began. The global
Mm.
pandemic was on us. We were all navigating and trying to figure it out. It did so many things to us. How did you survive it, and how did it change you?
Oh my gosh, it was a crazy time for me because my first book, Science of Yoga, had come out and had been translated into over 15 languages. So I was going to go on a world tour and I had it set. I was going to Japan and Germany and I sold everything I owned and was living out of a suitcase. I made it to South America and I started to see things happening in China. And then, I stopped back in the US and things just went down. Everything got delayed, we thought, but it was actually canceled
Yeah.
in the end. And I ended up in my mom's basement for a while during
Wow.
that time, which is not where I expected to be
Yeah.
at that point in my life, which really made me pivot, do a lot more things online. I created a science of yoga course online and a lot more YouTube videos. So it was a big pivoting time. But, eventually I went on that vacation to Hawaii and
Yeah.
stuck around.
And it
Yeah.
stuck. So there you go. So the beauty of your book, meditation for the real world is that I think we're at a point in post COVID where the idea of mental health is more ever present than ever. And a lot of people are trying to be preventative about it, about ways they can get themselves to a better place. And meditation seems to be one of the top things that people are going after.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of like at this point we know that meditation is good for us. We've heard it from the top CEOs meditating, from Microsoft to Google. We've heard the neuroscientists meditating. Many of our doctors have said, to lower your blood pressure, you should meditate. But sometimes it's hard to make that habit stick. And
Yeah.
many of us, I've heard stories of trying to meditate and then feeling like, oh, I'm not good at this.
Right.
My mind wanders too much, so I give up, or it made me a little more anxious, so I give up. But really, I can debunk all the things that you may be thinking if you've tried meditation before and it didn't work for you. Because if your mind wanders too much, that is more reason to meditate.
Yeah.
Meditation is boot camp for your focus, and mind wandering is a step in meditation. It happens to the most advanced meditators. So the fact that you're noticing your mind is wandering is part of the whole process.
Yes.
So it gets better with time. And I think that's one misconception. And the other is like, oh, I tried it before and it didn't like work for me. I felt more anxious or something like that. And I think a lot of people just doing the wrong meditation for them or for that situation. So that's what this book, Meditation for the Real World, is really about. It's about like variety of meditations. I have 83 different types of
Yeah.
meditations in there. So you can try and figure out what works for you and for what situation. It's a different meditation you're going to do when you're feeling really anxious and overwhelmed. Maybe you're doom scrolling. I have a meditation for doom scrolling. Then
Yeah.
if you're, grieving the loss of a loved one, or if you're about to go on stage and you need to find focus, those are all different meditations to try out.
And I think that's the beauty of your book is that it does stop all of those people that say, well, this is getting in the way, and you have a resolution to it. But what I think is very intuitive and very wondrous about your book is that all of the illustrations, the illustrations are light and airy and they
Yeah.
feel good. And I think it's good to have levels of illustration. I think sometimes people treat meditation like jazz music. Oh, I just don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I have a jazz show, so I think sometimes people think that it's a little bit more complex or highbrow than it actually is. And it really
Yes.
is getting to elemental levels of who we are as human beings.
And I think adults love picture books
Yeah, of
too. It's
course.
not just for children. So I teamed with a New York Times illustrator, Michelle Mildenberg Lara. She does stuff for the New Yorker, New York Times, really gorgeous illustrations. And the
Yes.
color scheme of it is just amazing. So my publisher, DK, is known for these coffee table books.
Mhm.
They're artist books. If you're a book lover, this is the perfect gift book or to have
Yes.
by your bedside. We're so addicted to technology that we're like, doing apps for meditation, which can be great, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's nice to like get away and get away from technology and kind of read,
Yes.
go back to the basics and get that relaxing experience of the physical turning of the pages, the sound of it. So that's really what I wanted to create with this.
And when I was a kid, I was into comic books, so it plays into that whole idea. Like
Yeah.
we do think in pictures. That's a part of what we do. And with the subject matter and with what you're explaining, you're giving people the ingredient list of how to do this. I think it's really important to compound it by images. So, and plus it has a coffee table book vibe to it. This isn't something
Yeah.
that you just shelve and it's with all the other books that are just regular paper. This is like really well done, illustrated, good stock. It's a good, attractive book to have on a table.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's good stock. I'm glad you mentioned that. As an art major, I love the paper of
Oh
it.
yeah,
It's actually sewn and it's a beautiful book.
yeah,
And wonderful gift book for anybody that's been told to meditate but maybe just can't get into it. A different approach to it. And
yeah,
even, if the audio meditations are the way to go for you, I have a gift for your listeners. If they go to meditationfortherealworld.com, they'll find out about how to get the book, but also you get 5 days of less than 10 minutes a day of
yeah.
audio meditations that are science backed at meditationfortherealworld.com too.
So the first person that I ever knew that was like a big shot that got into meditation that really kind of turned the light bulb on for me, believe it or not, of all people, was David Lynch. And he has a
Mm,
foundation and he's
mhm.
very, very into helping soldiers that are dealing with PTSD and a lot of people that have gone through trauma. And I always thought it was weird because his movies are almost trauma inducing.
They are, yes.
I mean, they're wonderful. I love his art, and he is an artist. So I'm curious, who was the first person out there
Mm.
that introduced you to meditation that really made you,
Oh gosh.
or that you
First
were
person.
surprised that was into it?
Um, well, I'll answer that question in a moment, but I did want to just say that meditation induces creativity.
Yes.
So in the book, I have a whole section about creativity, a whole section about how music and dancing and how you can use meditation to get into that flow state quicker and longer, how you can use it to enhance your art.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the first person, I would say it was more like just I came to the meditation not on purpose. It
Right.
was not natural to me. I came to it because I was going to yoga classes. And at the
Yeah.
end of a yoga class, you do a meditation. But by the point we'd be doing that, I'd be looking at my watch. It is time to go. I already did what I thought of as the yoga, the poses. I'm ready to
Uh-huh.
go. I have things to do. This is a waste of time. So
Yeah.
it took a while to like get into it and really get it for me. But once I did, it's like, oh, this is the answer.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose like a celebrity person, which by the way, I have a whole section in the book about celebrities that meditate, and I think that I would choose Oprah
Hmm.
because she's been such an advocate for meditation and getting on a variety of meditators from monks to researchers on her show that really are showing that diversity of the practice.
So talk to me a little bit about what you wanted to be when you were younger. When you were, say, in the second, third grade, what was your dream? Was it always to be an author?
It actually was, but I
Okay.
wanted to write novels. So I
Okay.
would write novels in little notebooks and journals. But I did become an author and not in the way I thought I would, and actually in a quite a serendipitous way. I brought in this book without an agent, without a big social media following, without even a book proposal. I was reached out to by my publisher DK, which is part of Penguin Random House, to write this book, both of these books. So it was a different path, but it feels like a serendipitous journey. Like having that intention as a small child, I'm gonna be a writer.
Yeah.
It came true.
So let's go back to the beginnings of your life. Obviously there's writing, you mentioned art. Take me back to where you were born and
Mm.
raised, and what were these seeds of creativity and ultimately getting to a point where you're presenting this science, this meditation for people to grab hold of?
Yeah. So my mother was I think a wannabe artist. She really, truly, she ended up becoming a lawyer and a businesswoman, but She was always very artsy, and I think that's what she really wished to be. And so she always encouraged art projects, even just here's a big refrigerator box, turn this into something and make it into a spaceship. And everything was an art project in my household. And I really thrived at it. My brother was encouraged to do science because he thrived at science and math. And I was encouraged to do art because that's where I showed the aptitude. And I ended up going to art school. Um, but ironically, we've switched now. My brother is a screenwriter in LA,
Wow.
and I'm a science educator. So I ended
Wow.
up after art school going back to school, getting the pre-med, course load and working in a cadaver lab, becoming a massage therapist at night, and just exploring the human body from that perspective. But it's so interesting, having that art background because my first exploration of the human body was, figure drawing,
Yeah.
nude drawing with charcoal.
Yeah.
And so now, and movement, dancing. So to go from that to the cadaver lab,
Yeah.
it's a different perspective, but I feel like it all came together with these books because as I said, I've been able to team with the top illustrators and designers in the world at DK. I mean, really, the teams are so brilliant to create these. So it all came together, art school and science.
So what was the first book when you were a kid that you read that really, really opened
Hmm.
up that chamber in you and you wanted to either read more or become a writer?
Oh, really good question. I did love Dr. Seuss. My dad would read me Dr. Seuss, and those are very like illustrative. I'm trying to think. Oh, I'd say Alice in Wonderland was
Yeah.
another one that's not as necessarily illustrative, but you create the pictures in your own head.
Yeah.
So those would be the books I think that come to mind first.
So who's been a hero for you, an inspiration for you?
Mm. I mean, it's almost cliche. I know a lot of people say Oprah, but
Sure.
Oprah has absolutely been such a hero to me. So,
Yeah.
the way she interviews, which you're a great interviewer too, the
Thank you.
way she asks questions, her inquisitive nature, her love of books,
Yeah.
that has been a big part of what's inspired me to be an author and to create these physical pieces of art.
So you may have already answered this, but if you can meet one person alive right now on the planet, spend some time with them, who would it be?
Oh, they have to be alive.
Well, we could open it up to the ghosts. We can have both worlds.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't have to be alive, then I'm going to go Da Vinci because he's the
Okay.
ultimate connector of science and art.
Yeah.
When you look at his notebooks, they're these beautiful illustrations of the human body and the figures. And then also his creations, the flying machines and his cadaver images and cutting people open. Like he did it all. So he's definitely Da Vinci is who I'd like to hang out with. I'm sure he's quite quirky too, like
Oh yeah.
my father's a rocket scientist, so I grew up with both
Wow.
sides.
Yeah.
So he was a NASA rocket scientist, and he's very, very quirky with big, crazy hair and all the cliche. And so I think I'd get along with Da Vinci.
Absolutely. You know, my uncle Rico was a huge fan of Da Vinci, and I went to Italy and saw a
Mm.
museum out there on Da Vinci and how he wrote with both hands, just the whole thing. And it was crazy. So my question, the reason why I bring that up is being in a place like Italy that has so much art, and you being somebody that's been in art for a while, what's your favorite museum, your comfort paintings? What do you love the most?
Hmm. Who do I love? It's been different periods of time in my life of which artists spoke to me. When I was younger, it was all Monet.
Yeah.
I loved the colors. I loved that over his life, he lost vision but stuck with it and how that
Yes.
transformed and his story. So for him, that was an inspirational story for me. I think Salvador Dali is one that I can stare at for hours, and contemplate. And I've seen a show of his before. I believe I saw it in Paris. I believe that's where that show was, traveling through. So Salvador Dali for sure. those are the top two I'd say that
Yeah,
are popping in my mind. I could go on because, like I said, I went to art school, so
yeah.
this is fun to talk about. I haven't talked about this in any interview yet.
You know, Dali, I saw a thing in Italy at one point, and and I've always loved his stuff. But the weird thing about Dali is that he got involved with films. And
Mm.
I don't know if you know this, but he was originally supposed to be a part of Fantasia, and he was going to have a
Mm.
vignette in it. And I went to a filming of kind of all of the pieces that didn't make it into the original cut, and his was in there. So go to YouTube and look it up.
Oh,
It's
wow.
really, his filmmaking is really over the top bizarre. But I can see why audiences at that point in our American history were
Weren't
like,
ready.
I don't think so.
That's funny. I actually use a lot of Salvador Dali paintings to explain science and anatomy and physiology in my courses. So it's been kind
Interesting.
of cool to bring those together and use art to explain science.
Yeah, I always feel like the last 4 years has been like melting clocks. Like all of
Mm.
it's kind of descended into like a glob of wax, and you can't really decipher was that 21 or was that 22 or it's just it's weird. So uh,
Yes, I agree.
again, Dali comes back. So let me ask you this. What is your ultimate motivation to write the books, to help people, but to also evolve yourself as a human being? What gets you out of bed and makes you do that?
Well, my work is so passion driven in that I do it because I myself have dealt with anxiety so debilitating I would pass out in the most inopportune of times and chronic pain. So I came to these for my own healing. So definitely continuing to learn this, but for me, understanding the science has motivated me to practice, and I think it motivates many people to practice
Yeah,
when you understand, oh, this isn't just woo woo, this works. There's a reason that these practices have stood the test of time. You know, meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, they stood the test of time because they work.
yeah,
And ultimately, my purpose of spreading the science supporting these practices in the mainstream is because in order to get yoga and meditation to be more accessible, inclusive, pervasive in our culture, accepted, you need the science. That's how we get it into hospitals, into schools,
yeah.
into public spaces like jails, is using science evidence that it's not only safe, but also effective. And we know at this point, the evidence has mounted that meditation is safe and effective for anxiety, depression, trauma, cardiovascular disease, blood pressure. I could go on, but it's really beneficial for our overall health. And so if the health insurance companies can promote it, et cetera, that's going to be how we really get more people meditating, and then we'll have a more peaceful world.
You know, it's interesting you saying the fact that it is one of the oldest institutions when it comes down to doing something. It's not like a modern like America's so youthful with all the things that we put in our culture. But when you look at something like yoga and meditation and all these different practices, they've been around for as long as humans have been writing on walls and trying to figure our own selves out, you know? So,
And cross-cultural. It's not
yeah,
just from India that we had meditation.
right.
It's throughout the world, throughout cultures. And that says something that
Yeah,
this is universal. And I had a yoga therapist, a yoga teacher who also is a physical therapist, and he said, looking forward 1,000, 2,000 years from now, yoga and meditation will still be around. I'm not so sure about physical therapy.
right,
I'm not so
right.
sure about our modern medicine as we practice
Yeah.
they're not going to be around, at least not in any shape or form like it is now. But yoga will continue to stand the test of time, and meditation too.
Absolutely. So in your books, you give people good practical advice on how to live their lives in a different way. What's the
Mm.
best advice that you've ever gotten?
Ooh, the best advice I've ever gotten. My mentor, as a recovering perfectionist, I would always be like, I should have done this. I should have said this. It's a lot of I should have. And she's like, stop shitting all over yourself, Anne.
Yep.
Letting go of that constant, I think meditation teaches me is like that constant regret, or what if I said this? What if,
Yeah.
because a lot of times when we meditate, our mind wanders to the negative because our brains have a negativity bias. So it illuminates these sort of thoughts where you're like, why did I say that 10 years ago to that person? That was so stupid of me, right? I
Yep.
shouldn't have said that. And that's completely natural to think about that because we're trying to be self uh, in preservation mode, we want to have that social connection, but it's that's when you notice, okay, let it go. They're not
Yep.
thinking about it.
Right.
And throughout the day, we don't notice those thoughts constantly pervading us and affecting our zen, affecting our focus, affecting our ability to do our craft or our passion or be with our family. And so meditation teaches you how to notice. Oh, wow, I'm thinking about what I said 10 years ago, or I'm worried about this thing that hasn't even happened.
Yeah.
So stop shitting all over yourself in a little more acceptance of what is.
That it's interesting because there's this um the thing where they'll give somebody a piece of paper and say, list 10 good things or 10 good things about your life or 10 things you want to change. And they always go to the negative. The negative just spills out. But
Yes.
when you have to go to the positive, it's a harder exercise for the brain to wrap itself around.
Yeah, as a yoga therapist, I work with people one on one, and I'll ask them very first question, "What's going well in your life?" It's a good thing just to ask
Uh-huh.
friends or like you're catching what's going really well in your life. 9 out of 10 times they will tell you what's not,
Right.
even though you literally just asked what's going well.
It's wild. It's wild. So I'm curious, what's the best fan letter you've ever gotten from your books?
Oh, ooh, that's a really good question. I think right now getting the fan letters about meditation for the real world is like I didn't think I could meditate.
Yeah.
I I didn't think this was like something that was me. I thought I was bad at it, but you've given me permission to let my mind wander. You've given me permission to be human. Right? Humans are
Yeah.
natural mind wandering machines. So that's been really great. And with Science of Yoga, my first book, most of the fan letters are like Instagram posts of people with the book open on their yoga mat, and it's encouraging them to physically practice. So I love
Yeah.
that both of these books encourage people to apply it and practice it and do it. It's not just philosophy and theory, even though, with this new book, Meditation for the Real World, I teamed with neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Lazar. We integrated the most cutting edge research so you can have that motivation to practice. So it's all in there and visually explained, but it's not just like a lot of meditation books written by neuroscientists where it's just the theory. It's actually here's step by step. Here's how you do it, and this
Yeah.
is what it's going to help based off of the evidence and based off of my clinical experience. So,
Yeah.
and, making it practical, and that's what I'm seeing is people are actually practicing from these
That's the
books.
thing. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that's the nature of how you wrote this book and presented it. I think it makes it so much, I don't know, just there's an extra urge that goes into it. So I'm curious of all of the things that you've done in your life and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Mm. Gosh, you ask such great questions. I've never
Thank you.
answered this.
Uh,
I I mean, I am really proud, of the books because that culminates an effort of like a decade of of research, even
yeah.
though it's written in a shorter period of time, it culminates. So definitely the physical thing, the art that I put into the world, definitely the books and them being translated into multiple languages. But I'd say, personally, my practice, my yoga practice and meditation practice has helped me tremendously with my anxiety and pain. I mean, it used to be so all pervasive in my life and take over and hold me back from doing things. And I'd say that the practices themselves helping me to manage those things and them to be in the background so that I can be like truly creative. My creativity is my like top uh, I guess, attribute that I'm most proud of. And I
Yeah.
think getting the anxiety and the physical pain out of the way
Yeah.
helps me to express that creativity. So these practices, they work.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If we get off the call here and a time machine pulls up in front of your house, you can go back in time and see one event in human history, or you can go into the future and see what's going on. Where are you going to go?
Ooh, I would definitely go to the future.
Okay.
Uh, you know, I'm wondering what the future of meditation is. Like, I have had this dream for maybe like 3 or 4 years, so well before people were really talking about it. I dream of having a meditation studio in the metaverse,
Yeah.
or uh, this oasis you can go to. You can put on these wearable and arrive at a beach,
Yeah.
hear the sound of the ocean. One of the things I talk about in meditation for the real world is how nature sounds, pink noise and brown noise, and these
Hmm.
science backed sounds that researchers actually call digital drugs. They
Yeah.
can affect your brain waves, help you get into that relaxation state, as well as specific frequencies of sound. So I would incorporate those sounds
Hmm.
as well as the visuals where you can lie on the beach or in the mountains and do a meditation. So creating
Yeah.
this little oasis. And the more you practice that, I think in the metaverse or in this sort of environment, the more you can go there in your mind, the more you
Yeah.
can access that inner oasis that we always have access to when we recruit our senses and imagine we're somewhere where we feel safe. So
Yeah.
I'd want to see where are they going with meditation. I guess,
Yeah.
what 10 years ago I would have liked to know about the apps and I would have started an app, but like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
how can I how what is going to happen with this to make it an all pervasive, and how can we use technology, I guess, and AI in
Yeah.
a way that helps people feel more peaceful, more creative, get in touch with themselves?
Yeah.
Not necessarily all the things we're thinking about right now, which is like productivity and getting ahead, but
Yeah.
how can we use it for our health and well-being? That's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah. So, Anne, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of your readers, but you are in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
The creativity thing is definitely what comes to mind. I think it all comes together, whatever your seemingly disparate interests are. I was on this path of art for so long as a visual artist, a documentary artist, and it ultimately came back because now I'm a YouTuber and
Yeah.
I'm an author that works with artists, and so it seemed like I was like pivoting and having all these different things, but they all come together. So like I feel this trust that everything comes together when you're really creative, and so creativity is my thing that I feel the most identified with.
So, I always hear that sunsets in Hawaii are some of the most
Mm.
magical things. It
Yeah.
never gets old, right?
It never gets old. And sunrises. So where I
Right.
live, I'm on the beach, and some points of the year we see the sunrise on the ocean, some points the sunset, kind of moves. And sometimes we see both on the ocean at the same time, like the
Yeah.
same day, we'll see both. Um, so I definitely always go outside for the sunrise and the sunset and experience that. It's magical here.
That would have to just be overall for your entire way that that you your concept of life has to be so much more peaceful and in tune with things being in a place like that. It just seems magical to be on the beach and in a place like Hawaii. I mean, everything you look at is beautiful, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think we can all get tastes of this by getting in touch with nature. So if you're able to get outside for the sunset or the sunrise, even if you can't actually see it, the light in the sky, and I speak of this and the science of it in meditation for the real world, the light in the sky at those times of day are really beneficial for your overall health. So in the morning, we have the blue light that wakes us up. We release a little bit of cortisol in a good way that makes us alert and
Yeah.
focused. And then in the evening, it's the reds and the warm colors in the sky and those specific spectra of UV rays that are really good for our health, help us wind down, release melatonin. So I use these key moments to get in touch with nature, but also to integrate a 1 minute meditation.
Yeah,
Or if you
absolutely.
see the moon, a full moon versus a waxing or waning moon, take a moment and notice it to really get in touch with nature. Even if you're in a city, you can look at the moon. You
Yeah.
can take these moments, see the sky while the sun is rising or setting, and savor it. That's what psychologists call like this feeling of like being present with it. And you can
Yeah.
integrate these 1 minute meditations. And truly, that's what the research is showing us is getting back to nature is one of the best things we can do for our health. So those moments make a huge difference.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm an IT technician for a large school district here in the Kansas City area. And there's a kid at the McDonald's. My son, when we get breakfast, he always recognizes me and we talk. And the other morning I pull up and he was like, "Did you see the Northern Lights last night?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" There was a weird solar flare that came through all the swath of the middle of the country. And he's like, "I got a picture on my phone." He pulls it up and all the colors that you were describing. I was like,
Yeah.
"You took that?" And I
Oh,
missed
wow.
it. It was Friday night. And I think about all these colors you're saying, because I had a friend that went to Iceland a year or two ago and
Oh,
saw the
yeah.
Northern Lights and was like, it was unreal. So we had that chance because there was a weird solar burst that came through and it kind of went through the country over the course of the week and different states saw it. But anyways, I would love to. It sounds like what you're talking about with all of those colors. So it's interesting.
Nature's the ultimate artist and
Uh-huh.
musician, right?
All the
And we're
time.
seeing that with the science of how it affects our well-being and health.
Yeah.
And also we all experience it in those magical moments.
Yeah. Well, there's a kind of an avant saxophone player, Eric Dolphy. One of his practice techniques when he lived in LA is that he would go out outside of his shed out back and he would literally follow the sounds of the birds with his horn. So
Mm.
they were the ones, and he would take their tones and how they were going up and down, and just like he would mimic the cacophony of bird sounds, which is crazy. But that's it. It's that nature has the best blend of everything that we're trying to replicate as humans.
And it's naturally healing. Even
Yeah,
looking at videos of the Hawaiian sunset or of the ocean, listening to audio sounds. I actually just released a meditation album, and I
yeah,
worked with my audio editor. She has two master's degrees in sound engineering and music and therapeutic music. And we integrated the frequencies and those natural sounds to help, optimize that feeling and get there quicker,
yeah.
which was a super fun creative endeavor. I never thought I would drop an album, but
That's cool though. Yeah. And I rely on that at night. I have the beach sound going, so
yes,
it's huge. And what were you saying the scientists call it? Um
digital digital
I
drugs.
love it. I love it.
Yes,
It's
they
such a great
literally
term.
call it that in the research. That's
Yeah.
how powerful sound
Uh-huh.
can be,
Absolutely.
is that they call it digital drugs.
Yeah.
It affects your neurochemistry, your brain waves
Uh-huh.
immediately, your mood.
That's amazing. So if anyone wants to pick up your books, the audio or the audio that's coming out, anything in your world, where's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, definitely go to meditationfortherealworld.com. That's where you'll find out about where to get the book. It's wherever books are sold, but you let me know you got it, and you get into the meditation challenge, which science-backed meditations incorporates those sounds that have been engineered to optimize your brain waves. So definitely go to meditationfortherealworld.com.
Excellent. Anne, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up your world. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck.